Merlin, network magic, Kubernetes. Wait, that can't be right. Kubernetes. I guess so. Let's check out Kubernetes. So this is going to be a little clips of videos. I don't profess to know anything about this technology. I literally went into, I'll show you how I found this, into my Docker. So there's a couple ways. If you right click here, there's a Kubernetes, and I don't have any context, right? So there's a bit of a hint. But let's go into our dashboard. And up here in settings, there is a Kubernetes button, and we can just enable Kubernetes. So let's turn this on and show system containers advanced, show internal containers when using Docker commands. Let's turn it on. Sure. Apply and restart. Installation takes a few minutes, requires an internet connection. All right, so let's turn that on. And I don't know, over my DSL that might take a while. So I'll come back once Kubernetes is enabled and hopefully have some commands and have some stuff, and we can poke around and check out what it offers us. Why am I doing this? Well, it's there. It's all over my Twitter feeds and my news feeds, and it's in the air in the industry. And I know it's, I don't want to say it's the hot new thing, and that's why I'm chasing it. But here's why I'm looking into it. Can it help me? Can it offer things to help my new world of containers and images? And eventually I want to have the Elk stack as a container running, possibly Espresso running as a container, my Merlin running as a container, all these different containers. And as you can see, yes, the Docker desktop helps me manage those, but can Kubernetes offer me something in the way of managing these containers, scheduling them, helping them interact with each other? I don't know yet. But that's why I'm going to enable this, to see if it can help me in any way. If it's a useful ecosystem, that then I should spend some more time getting familiar with. I have all kinds of more stuff I want to do with Docker. But for now, right, I have little containers running and I'm very happy with my progress. Even just the PyATS CLI, the portable PyATS, things like that. So I'll come back once it's downloaded and installed, and we'll see what we can do with it. Don't go anywhere. All right, so let's take a look and see what the state of our Kubernetes in Docker Desktop is. Let's just go to the settings here. So what we did was we turned this on, enable Kubernetes, show system containers, and I want to highlight that right away. Now we have our Docker running, and we also have our Kubernetes running. All right, in the system tray down here. Now, if we get out of the settings, now look at all of the container apps we have running here. We have a VPN kit controller, a storage provisioner, a pod storage provisioner, right? All these different Kubernetes K8s, API server, kube scheduler, controller manager, all kinds of things. And I think if we were to look into these, well, I didn't mean to start that. I was hoping to expand them. I guess none of them are expandable. So, and then in our images, right, we have all of our images. If I look for K8, here are the images and the containers that they've created, right? So the API server, scheduler, proxy, controller manager, pause, core DNS, etcd. And we have how big they all are. They're all relatively small, actually. This one's not even 1 megabit. It's in the kilobit. 50 megabit scheduler. Pretty neat stuff. So now let me find, right, so on the product manuals under Docker Docs, Docker Desktop, right, they have the overview and Windows and the dashboard, the dev environments, right? They bring you to deploy on Kubernetes here. So it includes a standalone Kubernetes server and client, as well as Docker CLI integration that runs on your machine. Server runs locally within your Docker instance, is not configurable. Okay, so we can't tune it, but that's good in my case. I don't want to have to configure it. If I can just run a pre-canned ready to go in a single node cluster. Now you might not be able to see this because of my image, but down in the Docker tray under Kubernetes here in the right click menu, and I actually have a check mark on a Docker desktop context. Here, let me do this to bring this to so that you can see it. So right in my system tray, I've got the Kubernetes Docker desktop now. So they have some prerequisites. The client command, kubectl, I assume that's for kube control, included and connected and configured to connect to the local Kubernetes server. If you've already installed it and pointing to some other environment, make sure that you change the context so it's pointing to your Docker desktop. Don't have to do that. If you installed it using Homebrew, no. So we've already enabled it. We've done that. And then use the kube command. Kubernetes integration provides a CLI command on Mac and here on Windows. Location may not be available, so you need to type the full path or add it to path. Can I do this in Ubuntu? Kube control get nodes? Yes, I can. And we can see it's 14 hours old, version 1212, roles, control plane, and master, and it's ready. So now there's some more information. Go to that documentation, and we'll look around and poke around at this. Now, if you go to the main Kubernetes documentation, they have these tasks, and I just want to point out there's a lot here. There's a lot here to take in and to learn. Don't be too overwhelmed if we go bite-sized and take it step by step. It's like any other thing. But there's quite a bit here to administer with kubeadmin, migration from Docker shim, certificates, system allocation of memory and CPU, lots of things in here. Now, if we scroll down here, I think it's, where did it go? Here it is here. No. I had it. Here we are. Yeah. I've jumped right to, the bottom of this list because all of this is taken care of for me by Docker Desktop. I don't have, right? It's a pre-canned. I don't need to configure it. So at the bottom, I happen to notice translate a Docker Compose file to Kubernetes resources. So it looks like there's a tool called Compose that's a conversion tool, namely Docker Compose files, to container orchestrators, Kubernetes. Before you begin, lots of stuff here. So I think, right, there's quite a bit to this, but I'm going to do some more research and some more Googling and some more reading of this documentation. I'm likely going to try to convert, say, IP interface brief from a Docker Compose to a Kubernetes resource using this Compose conversion tool. That's what I'd like to do, just to see what it looks like in the Kubernetes, what this means to me. But there's some important stuff I need to learn and read about before I proceed, I think, to just spinning, trying to convert something. So I'm going to do a little bit of due diligence here. Stay around. We'll be back soon. I won't be long. All right, so I've had some time to poke around. I also had to take care of some things, real things. And let's just take a look here at what we're going to try. So again, I found this article here, translate a Docker Compose file to Kubernetes resources. I believe this is known as a manifest, but I could be wrong. It doesn't say anything about manifests in here, but anyway, we're going to try to convert this Docker Compose to Kubernetes. And I followed these instructions to git download it, and then make sure you don't miss these last two steps here. And now if I just type compose, it's certainly installed. Right, so what I want to do is follow these instructions and do convert. Right, so compose convert. 3.8 of Docker Compose is not supported. Please 1, 2, or 3. All right, so there's something wrong in my Compose version. Let's hop over here and make this, I don't know, just 3. Try that and try this again. All right, so there we go. So, pretty neat. Service name, and look at inside of here, inside of my folder, it's converted, right? Changed from learned BGP to learned dash. So it changed them all to hyphens, and it made them all .yaml files. And let's go look at interface brief. So let's do the side by side here. So this was the Docker Compose file. And here's the IP interface brief section, right? 4 lines, image, and then the build, context is root, and then the Docker file. Well, this has changed this into some metadata, labels, the name, some replicas, the template here, and here is the spec, the containers, the image. Pretty neat, pretty neat. So now that I have this YAML file, they suggest here that we can do cube control apply F and then the output file. Well, let's try it with interface brief. And I don't believe anything has changed here in Docker. Right? I only have, only the Kubernetes images are up, and I only have the Kubernetes. All right, so let's go back and try this cube apply F. And we're going to type in IP int brief. Does not exist. Oh, do I have to do the whole? Yeah, okay, so that's, hang on. That's a syntax error. All right, this here. So deployment.apps has been created. Now your deployments are running in Kubernetes. Has anything changed here in? Yeah, so IP interface brief is now in use. And if I go to my containers, see, I don't see it up as its container, but the image is running. Is it in here anywhere? Do you see anything about IP interface? Here it is. So it's now a pod. IP interface brief, and I can shell into this pod somehow. Where did that go? Maybe not. Well, the CLI crashes. I can restart it, running, and then I'm coming in here to the pod. Got a signal terminated, and then is it going to spin back up? Restart it. I'm not sure what's happening here. I don't know if entry point, arch, run this new container. I see, and then I can spin up a container from this service. Let me just try this. IP int brief, and I'm going to call this John IP int brief, and I'm not going to map any paths here. Run it, and now I have my own container running where I can. Well, I'm not sure if it's running or not. I keep getting this signal terminated. But maybe if I map the drive, it'll tell me if it's running or not. Anyway, pretty neat stuff. And then presumably, like they show you here, I could chain together all of those deployments and spin them all up. So now let's just see here, access your application. We're not using Minikube. Otherwise, let's look at what IP your service is using. So let's just see here, and they call it front end. I'm not sure what my service name is. I guess, see, they have front end. So let's go look, what is my service name here? IP int brief. All right, so let's do cube control describe. Doesn't look like tab works out. Service, and then let's put in IP interface brief. Service is not found. It has the, I guess it's a deployment and not a service. See, I should have a service called IP interface brief. Anyway, I'm still fumbling around with this. Don't get too distracted. Maybe at home you're saying, just type this. I'm trying to see if I can, let's just try cube control describe SVC. Okay, so there's the base service, endpoints, Single stack. Pretty neat. API server, but what about my service? Is there a way to list all services or something? Huh. Pretty neat, pretty neat. I'm going to have to find out. See, they have the front end. How come I don't have... What if I put the whole path in? There's no need to specify resource type as an argument name. Instead, use the resource/resource name. So what is my... Will Docker tell me? Help me out here? Container apps. Is it this whole pod cube thing? I don't know. Where's my IP interface brief? IP interface brief. Inspect it. I wish I knew more. I'm at that point. I wish I could describe that service. And it's not found. Well, if you're using a cloud provider, your IP will be... I'd love to find the IP of that service. That would be really neat. So I'm going to poke around. I'm making really good progress here. And if I can just spin it up as its own container, the image from my Kubernetes. But if it gives it an IP and an API and scheduling, and there's all kinds of discovery here, I'm going to slow down and see if I can just find the name of my service. Let's start there. And I'll come back with a lot more of this. Thank you. Hey everybody, we have a cheat sheet. It's exactly what I need right now, is a cheat sheet. So check it out. This is right on Kubernetes. Docs references kube control cheat sheet. That's what I'm looking for. All right, so let's start with what they recommend to start with, right? Kube control get services. So there's my service. That's why I couldn't find it as a service, because I have a service as the name of Kubernetes. So this describe service Kubernetes maybe, right? Or just describe service. That's our default. So now let's try the next one and get our pods, right? Kube control get pods, and let's do all namespaces. All right, so these are the pods. Now, looks like I've got a crash, loop back off. Don't know what that means. I don't know. It's obviously it's not running, but it's not something that just runs. Like it's a one-time command and stops. So I don't know if I have to make it into an infinite loop and I just want that to just constantly be running. I don't know. I don't know yet. Or if this is okay. Now the namespace is default. It's not part of the kube system. And there's my IP interface brief, and then it looks like it puts its own hash on there. And it's 17 minutes versus the 17 or 12 hours. So get all pods in a current namespace with more details. Now let's try it without the all namespaces. I think this is just write my pod there. So then let's do the O wide. All right, and I have an IP here internally inside of it, and it looks like it's in the /8 network. I'm not sure how big Kubernetes spins up for a network inside of the network inside of the WSL. It's very matrix-like. We're really losing track of what's real and what's virtual, because this is its own private network deep inside here. And it's nominated node. It's not Docker desktop node. So then get pods, get all pods in the namespace, a particular deployment, get a pods YAML. Well, that's interesting. Let's get the YAML, and we'll change that from my pod to our pod here. And there's the build file, or the YAML. And it's much more than, this is like a fully compiled, the output of the compose. So there's my host IP and the pod IP. Now I wonder if I can expose ports or something. Now can I don't think that works. What I would like to do is, like, can I curl that 192.168.65.4 and get anything back? I don't know. I'm hoping that maybe I can curl and it'll tell me that it's up, unless I need to expose an API or build my own API into that pod to answer that curl. I don't know. I think so though. Now I don't know if I can even ping it maybe. Maybe I should have started with ping instead of curl, but yeah, none received. I don't know. We're going to have to look into that. So then there's all kinds of get services sorted by name. Describe commands with verbose output. So I can describe that node. Let's do that. Cube control, describe. I wish it had tab. Nodes, and then that node. Oh, that's a pod, not a node. Excuse me. Wow. Okay, so let's look at that. So the scheduler, 20 minutes, default scheduler. Sandbox change, container image ready and present, started container, and then I got this back off, restarting failed container. So I don't know, it looks like it started, but I don't know if it actually ran or worked. So I'm going to have to do a little more homework here and see how to find out if it's successful or not, or what this back off restarting failed container means after a. Right, that's just a warning though. I would like to see finished, right, or completed or something. But this is very, very interesting stuff. So what I'm going to do is I have a lot to do. I don't want to move too fast, too far, but I can spin up all of those different services as pods. And they'll each get their own IP. Pretty neat. A lot to do here, a lot to learn. I'm going to stop here, but I'm going to continue on this road of Kubernetes development. If I happen to figure anything out, I might tack it on to the end of the video. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap it up here and try to keep this nice and concise. What we've done is move from my previous videos of Docker and Docker Compose. I happened to find a button inside of Docker Desktop that says Enable Kubernetes. I've enabled that. Just as a note, reboot your computer. Restarting or after the install, it kind of hung. It wasn't quite healthy, so a full reboot. And now your Docker Desktop has the Docker integration and the Kubernetes integration. There's a tool called Compose that will take our functioning Docker Compose file and translate it into a Kubernetes manifest or resources that we then ingest and spin up as pods inside of this Kubernetes. And we're just getting started. This is the tip of the iceberg here. So stay safe, get motivated, get inspired, install some of these tools. You can do it. I'm learning live here. I'm doing this from scratch, no training or anything. It's easy enough that you can follow along. So don't let these big words or containers or Docker or Kubernetes or infrastructure as code or DevOps or Git. They're all very, very accessible tools. You just have to read some documentation, spend some time in investing in yourself, and let's go on this journey together. So stay safe, everybody.